Remarkably, the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV is currently the UK's best-selling plug-in electric vehicle, making up nearly half of all sales since it was introduced in 2014. For this year, however, they've given it a bit of a restyle. Gone is the slightly bulbous look of the previous car, and the Outlander now wears what the company calls its dynamic shield, the design that's set to feature on future SUVs. It also features the now expected LED running lights, and these are joined by a capable set of part LED headlights. There are a few tweaks to the rear too, with reprofiled bumpers, a shark fin antenna, silver roof rails, chrome trim on the door sills, and a new light signature at night. Inside, the quality of the leather has been upgraded, there's a new black ash trim, a new steering wheel with a thicker rim that's heated on top models, and it offers a decent range of adjustment that's matched by the new, more comfortable seats. We're not normally fans of gloss black trim, as it tends to show scratches and fingerprints easily, but this stuff isn't too bad, and the controls for the new dual zone climate system now fall easily to hand. Some of the displays in the instrument cluster have been revised, and in place of a rev counter there's a dial that shows how much power you're demanding from the hybrid system or how much you're recovering through regenerative braking, but more on that later. The infotainment system has had a few tweaks too. It's now faster to start up, and although it offers most features you could think of, including a decent navigation function, music through DAB, digital radio and other sources, and a massive range of customization options, in general I think we'd probably say it does feel a little bit aftermarket in comparison to some other systems. Comfort for rear seat passengers is good, there's plenty of headroom, the seats are comfortable, and there's only minimal floor intrusion because there's no drive shaft running to the rear axle. The top two models come with a power tailgate as standard, although it is a little slow, particularly when closing, but once open it reveals a practical load space with 463 litres up to the window line, an underfloor compartment to hide away the various charging cables and other goodies, and with the split folding seats, space increases to anything up to 1,603 litres on the commercial models. Now this is where it gets a bit more complicated, because as a plug-in hybrid, under the bonnet there's a bit more going on than you might be used to. Over on the left is a 2-litre 4-cylinder petrol engine that, by itself, produces about 119 horsepower. However, it's joined by a 60 kilowatt electric motor and a generator, while under the floor there's a 12 kilowatt hour lithium-ion battery and another 60 kilowatt electric motor driving the rear wheels. The petrol engine can either drive the front wheels directly or charge the battery via the generator, and with everything working together, in total the system produces about 200 horsepower and 332 newton meters of torque, and that's enough for 0 to 62 in 11 seconds dead. What's clever about the Outlander system is that it can operate in several modes. In its pure electric mode, the petrol engine stays off and the front and rear electric motors drive the wheels, which they can do up to about 75 miles an hour and, Mitsubishi claims, for about 32 miles on a full charge, although we saw something closer to 24 miles during our testing. When the battery charge gets low, or when you need a bit more performance, the engine starts automatically and supplies additional power to the motors. This is called Series Hybrid mode, and it's something you'll most likely experience when overtaking or climbing a hill. Lastly, there's Parallel Hybrid mode, and this sees the petrol engine drive the front wheels directly, with additional assistance provided by the electric motors, and it's this mode that activates at higher speeds where the electric motors are less efficient. On top of this, there's also regenerative braking, which sees the electric motors effectively turn into generators whenever you use the brakes to help recharge the battery, and you can alter the amount of energy they recover, and therefore the braking force, using the B position on the gear lever or using the paddles mounted behind the steering wheel. There's also a charge button that tells the system to use the engine to recharge the batteries, and a save button that tries to save as much battery energy as possible. But if all of this sounds a bit too complicated for you, don't worry, because it's all automatic. All you need to do is slam it in drive and you're off. At low speeds, the system favours using the electric motors, and pulling away in near silence with only the muted whine of the motors to accompany you never grows old. Generally speaking, when the petrol engine does fire up, it's largely inaudible, certainly quiet enough for you to not notice most of the time, although if you gun it away from the lights, the engine will rev up pretty quickly. Even then, it's not intrusive. In fact, it's probably about the same as any car with CVT transmission, but do bear in mind that in normal driving, most noises you hear in a car are more likely to be wind and tyre noise. Here, the Outlander isn't bad at insulating you from the outside world, although driving over sharp bumps and tarmac ridges can make a bit of a racket at times. For the most part though, the Outlander rides extremely well. It has a naturally forgiving suspension setup that does an excellent job of smoothing everything out, but it manages to achieve this without sacrificing body control. We perhaps wouldn't go as far as to call it engaging, but even soaring away at the wheel fails to induce too much in the way of body roll, so on the occasions where you feel the need to press on a bit, the Outlander will certainly play along. Whether you're being propelled by engine or motor, progress is always smooth. There are no gear changes to get in the way, remember, and it's also surprisingly punchy, with overtaking slower moving traffic made easy by additional assistance from the electric motors. However, drive like an idiot and you'll quickly put a serious dent in your fuel economy. The government's official figure for the Outlander is an incredible 156 mpg. Whether you get to see anything like that in the real world depends on the kind of roads you drive on and the type of journeys you do. So, for instance, after a week's testing that combined a mixture of roads and the occasional charge from the mains, we'd notched up an average of about 65 mpg. On longer and high-speed journeys, where the petrol engine is mostly used, that dropped to about 35 mpg. However, if you do mostly short journeys on urban roads and can recharge the batteries regularly, you might find yourself hardly ever having to visit a petrol station at all. At least one industry body reckons the UK average commute is just 25 miles. Although I'm not convinced by that, but if that's you and you can charge up at work, then you're all set. Charging via the mains takes about 5 hours from flat, or you can have a fast charger installed that drops that time to about 3.5 hours. Alternatively, you can use a public charger that can generally get you to 80% capacity in around half an hour, enough to give you about 18 miles of range. You can keep an eye on charging progress via a dedicated Mitsubishi app. It's not as polished as, say, the Tesla app, but it allows you to schedule charging or the climate control, as well as change a variety of vehicle settings, although the app only works if you're in Wi-Fi range of the car. The Outlander really starts to make sense as a company car though. With CO2 emissions of just 42 grams per kilometre, it attracts only 5% benefit in kind tax, companies can claim 100% write-down allowance, it's exempt from the London congestion charge, and, at least until next year, it pays no road tax. What we like about the Outlander though is that it's a genuine 4x4 with 190mm of ground clearance and a useful wading ability. We didn't put ours through anything too taxing because, as standard, it wears distinctly road-biased tyres that clog up easily in the Hampshire clay, but with electric motors front and rear and a lock mode for more traction, with a decent set of tyres you might be surprised what it could do. It used to be the case that you could buy the Outlander PHEV for the same price as the equivalent diesel model. Unfortunately, on the 1st of March, the government plug-in car grant reduced to just $2.5 grand, so now the PHEV starts from £31,749, while our mid-range GX4H model weighs in at $36,399, for which you do get sat-nav, heated leather seats, electric sunroof, power tailgate, 360-degree camera and a few other goodies. Just a few years ago, 4x4s like this were reviled as planet killers and gas guzzlers. Back then, the idea of an SUV with economy into triple figures would have been totally unthinkable. Admittedly, the use cases where the PHEV shines may be limited, but even outside of that, the Outlander is a stronger performer than you might think. So good, in fact, it's not at all hard to see why it's the UK's best-selling plug-in electric vehicle.